welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMTrading. Today is August 17th, 2018, and today is Friday morning. So quickly looking at the economic events of the day, just one number coming out, monthly CPI numbers coming out of Canada at 2:30 South African time. But before we look at the Canadian dollar, lots happening in the markets. Walmart, one of the largest retailers in the United States, posted record earnings for yesterday and propelled the Dow Jones over 500 points during the day. So massive day on the Dow Jones. Let's take a look at the markets and see what's been happening.
This conference will now be recorded.
Before we get to the Dow Jones, let's take a look at our Forex symbols, starting out with the Euro USD. We got a little bit of a bounce yesterday, but nothing to really write home and no follow through. So the question is that are we going to continue going higher here, okay, into this 114-ish level, or are we going to falter? Okay, so the proof is in the pudding. Let's see if we get that sell-off later today, because this has been really weak. Now, if we look at some of the other pairs between the dollar, okay, the GBP out of all three of them is always the weakest, or at least of late has been the weakest, 127.22, and not showing much life. Okay, so this may continue to go down if we don't get a bounce later today. Now, if we look at the Aussie USD, you'll see that we got a sharper bounce, but nothing really, to write home about, nothing really significant to get us back into, correctional moves. So I'd like to see some sort of, follow through later today. If we don't get that, we may see a continued sell-off. Now, jumping into the Turkish Lira, as we know, the Turkish Lira last week had its spat between the United States, depreciated back to 7.7. Okay, and then slowly throughout the week, we've been, correcting ourselves as the week has been progressing. We're now trading at 583, and as things are, coming about, okay, or as things are, progressing in the news, if this pasture is not going to be released, United States is actually warning that they're going to impose some sanctions. So until now, it's just been tariffs. Sanctions is, a act of war almost. It's an act of economic war. So I'd be very careful, to be still trading this, especially on the downside for the Turkish lira and the upside for the dollar. So just be aware that we could still see some volatility, even though the market looks like it's, settling down and the dust is settling. So just be aware of that as we continue trading here. Now, looking at the USDZAR, we're back to our lows of 1464. We capitulated up to 1536 yesterday. Now, this is really being, a big correctional move for the USDZAR on the downside, especially propelled by what's happening to gold. Gold selling off to 1175. We'll take a look at this in just a moment. But if we continue to trade in this range, we could get back to the 1530-ish level. Okay, a tremendous correctional move from 11. So just be aware of that as that continues to trade throughout the week. Now, before we look in gold, let's see what's happening in the USD CAD. The CAD has been trading between 130 and 131-ish level, and we're closer to the top range of it. Okay, so unless we get some sort of positive news, I think we will sell off here. Okay, in the anticipation that, we're at the top of this move area. We've challenged it a few times and haven't broken above it, so we may see a correctional move on the downside. Now, jumping into gold, after this massive decline down to 1158-ish level, and finally bouncing to 1176 right now, this is still very weak. I still think that we'll get to the low 1100s. If we look at a daily chart, you'll see what I'm talking about, that it's making new lows for the year, and we even have to go to a weekly chart to say, this may get back to the low 1100s, and that's understood, especially because the some of the stocks are very strong recently. So that's something to pay attention to as the market continues to trade. Now, looking at the Dow Jones, if we jump up into it, we had a massive day yesterday. We're looking at a 1-hour chart. Between these two parameters, we rallied over 500 points, which is a massive day for the Dow Jones, as you can see here. Ultimately being propelled by Walmart, okay, which is, like I mentioned before, the largest retailer and beating its earnings. So, United States, it's a consumer market, and if it's positive and people are spending money, there's some, confidence in the market, and we like to see that. So looking at today, I'd like to see some continued buying, because what happened here is that, if we look at a 4-hour chart, you could see this, that we've challenged this 25,600-ish level, but we never broke above. Okay, if we jump into a daily, you can see that a little bit clearer. Since our debacle back in February, our correctional move up to 25,700-ish level, we've never, really followed through here. So I'd like to see some follow through today, especially today, on the back of yesterday. So let's see if we do get that at least to the 25,700-ish level, to try and close that gap and, maybe close it back to the upper highs. Now, if we look at the NASDAQ, didn't break out higher yesterday, and that's especially because one of its semiconductors came out with, missing its earnings. So, a little bit of a tempered moment in the NASDAQ compared to the Dow Jones. So NASDAQ is now faltering, not being as on the limelight as much, and the Dow Jones, being in place. So just keep that in mind. Now, looking at Bitcoin, lastly, okay, we had that move earlier this week where we bounced off of our support 5900 level, and now we're trading within this range. So, I'd like to see this breakout continue if this is going to still be strong. So we're in a little bit of a tighter range here, but let's see if we do get that follow through later today. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.